When it comes to good first-person horror games, I usually have F.E.A.R on the top of my list. The sequel, on the other hand, not so much. It's not a horrible game, mind you, but it definitely doesn't live up to its predecessor. Before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about the story. You play as a Sergeant Michael Beckett, who is a part of some squad that's transporting to the office of one Genevieve Aristide. Yes, the game takes place right before the ending sequence of the original game. Beckett has to take down a bunch of security forces along the way, and eventually meets up with Aristide, but not before the explosion from the first game knocks you out. You wake up in a hospital that is eerily empty, and find that the same ATC security force is getting ready to blow the whole place up to cover up evidence of the underlying projects, and things quickly devolve into really strange stuff. All while this is happening, Alma is getting a bit angsty, and now she's suddenly a teenager. And entirely nude? Bit weird, not creepy though. But what does get weirder is that she is seemingly only coming after you. Why is that? Well, for the sake of people wanting to play the game, I won't spoil it, but it's definitely a bit unnerving, and sadly it's the only somewhat interesting storyline to the game. There's also something about a Project Harbinger, where each of the members of the squad are ranked in ways to see how well they would react as a commander of the replica forces from the original game. But there's another hidden objective based on this Project Harbinger, which I won't get into since it leads into the spoiler I mentioned a few seconds ago. I'm going to move on past the story and fears I'm going to spoil something for the story. No, it's not amazing, but it has its moments to make you wonder what will happen next. Like, who's the Snakefist guy that sounds suspiciously like the guy from the F.E.A.R squad in the original game? No, he's not that guy, but who is he, and what is his purpose of helping you? Why are the kids in the school put in different groups? And why the hell is Alma naked? Anywho, it's obvious that the game is a shooter. Unfortunately, it's a fairly bland one. The gunfights were one of the best things about F.E.A.R 1. Unfortunately, they take a massive step back in F.E.A.R 2. When you're shooting your guns, you don't really have the shattering glass, the large smoke clouds, the random debris, and the chunks getting taken out of the walls. Instead, it's just mediocre assault rifles, SMGs, and shotguns dropping lots of blood, along with the occasional exploding body. Yes, you do still get the slow motion that you can activate when needed to get the advantage on the field, but the battles just don't have the same excitement level. And when the main mechanic of a shooter feels well, that drops the rating of a game down because you don't have as much fun. Yes, story is important, but games need to have all the elements blend together well for a game to be fun. At least to me. Maybe I'm just ranting and crazy, but it's my opinion. To help break up the monotony of the shooting, there are some sections where you get to pilot an armored suit to demolish any forces in the area. There's only 2 or 3 of these segments, but it's a nice change of pace. The armor regenerates on its own as you avoid damage, which is difficult to do when hundreds of bullets and even some rockets are flying your way. And that's what brings me to my next point. F.E.A.R 2 just doesn't feel like a proper sequel. If you just played the original and the sequel was ready for you, would you have guessed that there'd be a mech suit section? I mean, sure, you killed a few in the first game, but F.E.A.R 2 takes more of an action route than horror. Other players might get freaked out a bit more here and there, but me? The only time I got a bit spooked was in the ruined school, when all the lights are flickering and Alma is stalking you, along with a few specters. But other than that, you get some snipers ambushing you, a horrible quick-time event to kill one of the villains of the game, and an ending area where you take down replica soldiers with a freaking turret on an APC while rock music plays. How does this scream horror? To me, it doesn't. There's also a tram stage where what feels like endless troops keep assaulting you. This helps lead to the lack of horror element, because it's just soldiers coming at you in an industrial tunnel. Granted, I'm not saying that everything in the original was scary, but damn it did a better job at an overall atmosphere than its younger brother. In fact, the only thing that makes the game even remotely close to being a true sequel is the inclusion of a slightly grown-up Alma. Without her, this could have been any other FPS game with horror elements. At least I can say that the graphics and sound are decent though. There's plenty of blood when attacking the enemy troops, and sniping heads is fun to do just to watch the spurts of red. The areas you explore atmospherically are all appropriately dark and gloomy. Sure, there's plenty of blood trails, intentionally glitching out HUDs, and characters that disappear as you get close to them, so the developers did try to make the game look like a horror game. It's just a shame that the gameplay doesn't help steer it towards that direction. And I think that's all I got for F.E.A.R 2. I haven't messed with the expansion, the Reborn, because quite honestly, it just didn't appeal to me. Once I'm done playing the main game, I'm finished with it and want to move on to something a bit better. As I said at the start, F.E.A.R 2 isn't a bad game. It's just average, and doesn't do enough to be a sequel to one of the best shooters of all time. At least, one of the best in my humble opinion. Upon saying that, if you're aiming to play the entire trilogy, it's worth it to play this one just for some of the lore, but you probably won't think that it is the best game of the series. Final score? 4 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.